Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Geek Bytes podcast. I am Ramon Mejia here.
I'm Edgardo Acosta.
And every single week on the podcast, we bring you the round of the week's the best geek and tech news. We discuss that news and of course anything else we happen to be interested in that week. And this week we're going to be talking about some great things. But before we get to that, we want to give a big shout out and thanks to some new supporters for the podcast, including James Tavares, who donated $10 to the show via PayPal, and two new Patreon supporters who give monthly donations, Emma Moore, who decided to give $10 a month, and Kyle J. Smith, who was very generous and gave $20 whole a month to help support the podcast, keep it free and going, and cover the cost of, doing the broadcast and website stuff. So thank you everyone for being so generous.
So James, Emma,
you have to hold on.
Kyle.
I forgot my hat.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I love you. Guys, you're awesome. Anything that helps out. Look, it's again, this ain't really a cheap show to do. Got the fancy lights, equipment, and of course,
some of those fancy hat products.
Accessories.
Yes, we
accessories.
We explained previously that for the entire rest of the month, I get to wear this wonderful, beautiful hat as part of another Patreon subscriber's request. They don't want to be named, but they said, just wear a funny hat and we'll know that's for us. So there you go. So thanks, everybody. Now, in Geek News, we're going to have some great stuff, including...
We're going to talk about the Disney Fox deal, Slade, Venom, Gandalf, Drax, Time Travelers, the movie trailer showdown, and much, much more.
Absolutely. Of course, we begin our show, though, like normal, with Geek News. And in Geek News, we're going to begin the story that it's not new this week, but we weren't on last week, so this is probably the biggest news in the geek story that in the last couple months, Disney's acquired 21st Century Fox, and that is a huge deal for a lot of people because there's a lot of geek stuff out there that we all just totally, absolutely love. So it's absolutely amazing that we can actually finally see some potential stuff that Disney might do with these intellectual properties that maybe we hadn't thought possible at first. But of course, they're purchasing Fox, 21st Century Fox Film and Television Studios for $52 billion with the B dollars. I mean, I think they paid several $1 billion for Lucasfilms,
just four,
and for Marvel. But they're paying $52 billion for Fox's intellectual because there's a bunch of stuff in there. It covers 20th Century Fox Television, Fox-owned cable networks, including FX and National Geographic. The company stakes in international networks like Star TV and Sky, which is great. Also, Disney's also getting a majority control of Hulu in the deal since they're already an investor, and 21st Century Fox is also an investor. Now Disney actually owns a majority stake, which means they basically own a big share of that particular company, which that might be where Disney stuff ends up being at some point, controlling over 60% of that particular company. The deal is also under scrutiny by the FCC for possible antitrust issues, but Disney is so confident that in that merger deal, in that purchase deal, they said that they're willing to pay $2.5 billion to 20th Century Fox if it's blocked by the federal government. So that's how confident Disney is that they can make this thing go through, that they will pay almost as much for a breakup or a broken contract as they did for Lucasfilms. So I'm like, so either way, 21st Century Fox is going to come out ahead.
It's all about the dollars.
Yep. So, I mean, as nerds like us, we've been super excited about some of the properties, including Fantastic Four, the X-Men finally being under the same wheelhouse. So Disney owns Marvel, but you haven't seen a lot of those other characters because those other characters were owned by other companies like 21st Century Fox. And so we're super excited as geeks, even if it takes a couple years to finalize this whole thing out, because people are saying that the regulatory period will be about 12 to 18 months. So nothing's going to go through before then, of course. But just the idea that you can see X-Men hanging out with the Avengers or the Fantastic Four finally being like some big property with like Wolverine or whoever is kind of a cool thing.
Well, remember, I bitched and moaned on it for the longest of time, and it finally happened. Now it's just a matter of who they're going to get, what they're going to do, how it's going to turn out. I've been hearing, though, a little bit of mix-up for Fantastic Four, though. I think Fox had the distribution rights, but somebody else has the film rights.
Yeah, well, there's this multiple layers to that particular issue, in that folks who... Marvel initially sold the rights to the Fantastic Four to a foreign film company because they wanted it to be like done right, and it just wasn't a sellout.
Horrible.
Yeah, but they had like essentially a year's time to make a movie, which is general Marvel conditions that they want it made with a certain period of time. Otherwise, the rights revert back to them. And that company just couldn't get together, so they almost sublet the rights to another company to make the films, and so everybody still kept the rights, and money was going for everybody. And that's what it is now. But because that deal was with 21st Century Fox and not with Disney, there are potential issues like, who really owns this particular product? I'm sure Disney's willing to shell an extra, couple $1,000s or even a couple million for a big property like the Fantastic Four to go through.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. I'm glad it's happening during our lifetime. So at least I'll be able to enjoy a bucket list item before I die of seeing the X-Men and Avengers on film. So hopefully, with this happening, we'll probably see an X-Men versus the Avengers storyline. Eventually, they'll see what they'll do, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be awesome. Anything that you're looking forward to? Because they've been a little bit questionable about like, okay, well, that means they got Deadpool. Are they going to water him down and make
no?
PG?
They already talked about like publicly, like, though Deadpool's going to stay an R-rated film. You don't have to worry about that whatsoever. So Disney understands they like to make money. Like Disney's not a silly company in any way, shape, or form. They understand what the fans are looking for, what they like, and so they're continuing to give them what they want because they enjoy making profit.
Yeah, because especially some of the stuff, obviously they can't put really the Disney name / logo on some of their rated R stuff, so that's why they have other film organizations like Touchstone and Buena Vista. It's still Disney owned property, but that's where they can put some of their little nitty gritty rated R stuff.
Yeah, they could do other things. Like Disney's already done rated R films. They've done it in other locations with other properties. They even spun out their own different movie companies just to do like adult films that aren't titled as Disney. So Disney's no stranger to actually doing rated R films or funding them and making money from them. They're a company. It's not Walt and his family in charge anymore. So they're the stockholders and the shareholders. They like enjoying profit. So I'm sure we're going to see a bunch of mashups and crossovers, and even some more rated R stuff. I mean, you're going to have Gambit wants to be rated R. You have Spawn, which is always rated R, but it's become like the same idea of like a lot of different comic book titles going in a darker direction because they're geared toward the people with the money, which is grown-ups, and they understand it kind of on a fundamental level that those grown-ups like grown-up things.
Exactly, especially like on ABC. Remember, there was a very brief time there was an actual Clerks cartoon. Yeah. And if you know Clerks and Kevin Smith,
it's very nutty.
Exactly, but they were under the Disney umbrella and getting paid, so can't wait to see that. I want to see more games because I don't know if you've played or seen the Disney, Marvel versus Capcom Infinite. They took a lot of the X-Men characters out of it. Yeah. So there have been more because at the time they were focusing more of, okay, well, we're going to work with what we have, what we own. But now that with the merger, maybe they'll bring them back in, have just an expanded library of characters and all that. But my question is, there was talks, obviously, of Disney having their own app, like video, whatnot. Do you think that's still going to happen, or they're just going to work something with like Hulu?
It depends on what's more better for Disney. Disney might just put all their stuff on Hulu because it's an established platform. They might alternately just take the infrastructure from Hulu, the technology portion of it, the streaming content that's already been established, and expand upon it, like increase server status, increase, kind of just market it, like copy and paste it into their own networks, and then upload their own content and kind of keep the same infrastructure, but just, with Disney property rights now. All kinds of stuff like that. So those are all options. But we're going to move on to our next interesting geek story, which is going to be for Slade. Slade is a very well-known character on the DCW's slate of films, including Arrow, mostly. He's kind of, at this point, been an Arrow villain a lot of the times. But if you've enjoyed Deathstroke there, you're going to be sad because he's not going to be showing up for a very long time. And that's because DC has decided to kind of pull that the CW's ability to use that character from the show because he's showing up in the Justice League now. Remember, he was at the end of the Justice League movie. Spoilers, folks. He's the one who breaks out Lex Luthor. But because the fact that they're using the character there, they're pulling the rights for that villain from the CW universe.
That's pretty lame. It's not like they're going to stop making the Flash TV series so they can use the Flash in the film.
No, but genre. But it's different than, I guess, using a particular, a lot of the villains that the CW has been able to use have just been at the whim of the DC universe, like the DC producers of the comics, because they're like, oh no, we're going to use this villain and this villain for our superhero stuff, so you can't use them because they have more potential. And as as big villains. The same reason you're not really seeing Aquaman as showing up on the Flash. But you'll see the Flash because he's a popular enough character that it justifies the profit loss potentially for the brand confusion. I think that's what they call it.
Yeah.
And so, but the Slade character is like, oh no, we've seen him here, but we're going to focus him here, so you can't use him anymore. And to be honest, like the Arrowverse has not really been using him a lot lately. Like he was more of like a first season, second season, third season kind of character to use, but he's been recurring. But if you like him there, sorry, that's just kind of the way the movie business goes.
Yeah, hopefully it's improving because just like with Justice League,
just like slightly off topic, like because we're seeing Deathstroke in the League of Supervillains, who else do you think is going to show up there?
Well, you saw Justice League, right?
Yeah, I saw Justice League.
I didn't see it, but I've heard there was a kind of mock-up of the Legion of Doom.
So who do you think's going to join the Legion of Doom? We have Lex Luthor for sure. We have Deathstroke. We have Lex Luthor's cronies, of course, including Macy, I think her name is.
Well, obviously with the Aquaman movie, Black Manta.
So Black Manta. After the Aquaman movie, of course. So who else besides those two? Because you're going to have at least 5 or 6. The Legion of Doom essentially is the anti-Justice League. And so each one of those characters is supposed to be the foil for one of those people. So we have Aquaman's villain, which is going to be Black Manta. We have the villain for Superman, Lex Luthor. We have Deathstroke's not really anybody in particular, but he's kind of a Batman, kill anybody. Maybe the anti-Batman. I guess if you can argue that. So we need just Wonder Woman, and we need the Flash.
Well, Cheetah then.
Cheetah for
Wonder Woman.
That means they have to establish her first, and I don't know if they want to. I don't know if they want to do a cat fight. I mean, it's kind of the stupidest way of looking at it, but like, I'm assuming they're going to pull somebody from Wonder Woman 2 because Wonder Woman is set in like the World War I. Wonder Woman 2, however, is set in the 1980s, which is a better pull for a villain potentially.
Well, the one that they showed in, I think it was like a horrible review. Somebody, I guess he was supposed to be coming out in Gotham though. They were doing Solomon Grundy. But he looked horrible.
Yeah, I saw that.
Really bad.
It was a bad version of it.
Job and everything. So
I'm assuming we're gonna get Black Adam at some point into the Legion of Doom for
Shazam.
For Shazam, we'll join the Justice League. And so then you have Black Adam, which is you're kind of just playing Black Adam for the Rock's fame at that point. I mean that whole franchise is focused around the Black Adam character of the Rock. Like that entire thing is made for him basically.
Yeah.
So why not use him in the Legion of Doom sequel? I guess. Yeah. But what if the Flash? Do you think they're going to go with like
the Reverse Flash?
The Reverse Flash. I mean that's potential. But
for Captain Cold or.
Oh, Captain Cold's like a C-list villain though. Like all the guys on the Legion of Doom are A-listers. I'm hoping they show up Bizarro at some point. For Superman, I think that would be an amazing. I think the Bizarro character is just great on its own. So like maybe if they do like Man of Steel 2, then you have Bizarro coming from like some alternate dimension, maybe.
Maybe because that was the whole thing. There's a different version of Bizarro where they were trying to clone. Superman, but he wound up turning into Bizarro, or it wound up evolving and becoming Doomsday.
Yeah. I never liked the Bizarro to Doomsday concept because like they're different. I like the way they set it up in this particular movie, in that he's a Kryptonian, but he's like this completely metamorphosized version of the Kryptonian. And like I get that was kind of better for me. Yeah. But yeah, great opportunities there. With Slade going to like the major universe, you get a bunch more opportunities for him to work with other characters. So good and bad. Yeah. Okay. Speaking of some interesting characters popping up, we have some new things from Venom. The Venom movie is actually in production. We have the Bane actor as Venom. I forget his name. What's his name?
Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy. Yeah. Tom Hardy is going to be Venom. And we've gotten these are potential spoilers as to what the Venom character is going to look like. We have some concept art from Mikkel Fransen that has surfaced on the internet for the project. They've been very tight as far as what their CGI prospects are. This may also be a test release for what the character may look like maybe one of those like intentional leaks, where they're like testing the audience to see if they're going to go for this, or if totally it's a big dump, they're like, oh no, that's not real, that's not official. That could be this well, but these mock-ups look really good. The one that was released originally is this one on the right, which is just kind of this claymation model with the CGI character. But once they colorized it in, you could tell like, oh, this actually does look a little bit more like Venom, although it basically doesn't have eyes. So I'm like, okay.
Well, that was the kind of questionable thing on the Venom character itself. The eyes, it was just big white spots.
It was very anime.
Yeah, because he doesn't exactly obviously have eyeballs or pupils or whatnot. They try to work that in different versions of it, but it obviously didn't turn out.
Well, in like the comics and the animated version, there was always like the perspective, like, oh, once they looked at Venom's point of view, he could see.
Yeah.
So there was always the inference that he has eyes somewhere or some sensory issue, but at the same point, he was also very sensitive to sound. So maybe he interprets sound vibrations, visual stimuli for the host or something. Or they may do like some weird alien thing.
There you go, because that dome with the teeth kind of deal.
Yeah, that's what they're kind of looking for. Like that same kind of like, oh, this creature, just from a very fundamental look, looks like an alien symbiote. So, but I'm actually okay with this particular cover art on this artwork or this mock-up on the left. What about you?
I like it. The only thing that I always kind of miss, though, when they try to do a live-action version of the Venom, especially if you see in the comics, he does have, of course, like the red tongue, humanistic, if you will, but he has green, like, slobber slime. So to me, that always kind of was a weird contrast, that how you have a nice...
Well, it's all CGI. Like here, they're doing a lot of good texture work. Like you see, the tongue has different textures than the skin does. Different parts of the skin have different textures. I'm like, looks like they're going all out on the on the CGI work. Like part of the long big faces is actually a part of the physiology of the symbiote when it's covering the host. So I'm like, okay, that works for me at least.
And it's almost skull-like, because that was the thing. Venom, when his mouth is closed, he does have quote unquote lips that cover up the teeth.
Right.
So he's not just like a grin, like a skull all the time, with the tongue hanging out.
Yeah, he does that. You're actually right. He does have lips. So that's like, it's a lot of little detail work that shows like this may be the thing. At least we're hoping for it anyways.
Yeah, because were you a fan of the Tobey Maguire?
No, that was crappy. I don't know too many people who enjoyed that particular version of Venom.
Especially the body. The body threw me out because it was.
I'm okay with the black suit Spider-Man. That's a favorite costume of mine. It's real classic, real neat. Plus, he had those enhanced powers. But the Venom version of that in Spider-Man 3 was absolute crap. I mean, like it was.
Like a reverse Flash for the costume.
Yeah, kind of at least. And like the character itself looked super CGI and goofy. I'm like, that's not Venom. Like bulky Venom is definitely the Venom. Like this, the contrast in physiology between big, bulky, super strong Venom and skinny little agile Spider-Man was like visually it was like, oh, they're anti to each other. Like they're opposites. And that is better than just, oh, it's Spider-Man in a black costume and sharp fangs.
We'll see how far this goes, because once again, it is somewhat tied in with the Disney franchise, but I think they're trying to go just Venom though.
Well, no, yeah, this is. I mean, they'll spin it whatever they want to make the most money, but at this point they're saying, oh no, this is separate from Spider-Man. You're not going to see Spider-Man. You may see other characters in the Spider-Man universe, but I think it's Sony owns the Spider-Man franchise, right? So they're like, oh no, we're developing other characters from that Spider universe. So you're probably not going to see crossovers unless we think it's going to make us money. In which case, I'm sure they'll throw somebody in.
Yeah, but especially towards the end. Probably a little nod or preview or cameo of Carnage, or at least a little hint
for the sequel. Yeah. Well, remember the storyline we were talking about that's been bandied about the internet is that it's Venom's children, and so Carnage would be one of them. Yeah. He just wouldn't be in this particular litter. Yeah. Or they change up the storyline and make Carnage like a big issue. Yeah. But we don't know. But so we're going to hopefully see other symbiotes inside to this particular movie in addition to Venom. But it is supposed to be rated R with lots of killing. So, yay.
Nice.
Yep. Okay. More new news. We have Sir Ian McKellen. He is potentially going to be in that. Remember, we talked about this a little while ago. Amazon has purchased the rights to make a Lord of the Rings, I don't want to say television show, internet show? Series. They're making a TV show for the internet, for their streaming service. And they paid a lot of money for the rights. Like I think it was like $25 million or something, just for the rights to make it. That's not production costs at all. There's gonna be a ton of money put into casting and CGI. And Sir Ian McKellen was interviewed recently on like a British television show, and he was like, "Oh, what other Gandalf is there?" And he basically, when he was asked up front, he's like, "Yeah, I would play the character, but nobody's asked me yet." I'm like, to get that Gandalf from the movies to the television show would be a huge boon for that entire franchise, because it would give a lot of legitimacy to it.
That's true, because, not to be mean on Mr. McKellen, well, it's, I think it's as replaceable as Dumbledore.
Except, well, I to a point, except that has been a huge up close character for like much longer. Like they could change Dumbledore because Dumbledore was only in one movie at that point. And so putting it number 2 like years later, it was easier not to notice.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? But this would be more along like churning out Harry Potter's character. You know what I mean? Dumbledore is Gandalf is a much bigger character. He gets much longer scenes than Dumbledore does.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like he's a huge actor, and so use that fame. Why not?
Totally. Cash in on it and everything. But like, who doesn't want to see a whole bunch of guys in Renaissance period costumes walking?
Well, no, that maybe this movie may not be, but Sir Ian McKellen has always been like, I always like to attitude like, I'm a working actor. I'll take roles. Like, I don't care if it's on television and movies. He's like,
I check clears. I'm good.
Yeah, like I do this because it's enjoyable. Like I mean, I'm sure. Assuming at this point he's made enough money, but it's like he's like a legitimate like stage British actor. I'm like, that alone is like worth the extra cost like for this particular film or something. So yeah, I hope he shows up there.
Yeah.
Okay, next story, Addams Family. So they're making a new Addams Family movie. We talked about this before. MGM has recently announced that they're releasing this particular film in October of 2019. So a little over 2 years from now, because we just passed Halloween not too long ago. So we'll say 2 years. But that's relatively quickly from a decision to make a movie to actually putting it out. That's relatively quick because they of course have to do scripting still. They have to do filming and footage and casting and all the good stuff. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they have. But what do you think about them making a new Addams Family movie?
If I heard, wasn't it supposed to be an animated, or are they going to go live?
Nope, I think it's going to live action.
Okay.
Because they've tossed about some live actor names for like a new Gomez. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because pretty much even. Well, other than what's her name, Christina Ricci, that played.
I think we'll love to see Christina Ricci as the mom now.
They've done that. They actually dressed her up once, and they're like, it's doable.
It is. She's old enough now.
She's old enough. Why not? Because sadly, a lot of the original television versions of actors that played in the Addams Family aren't really around. Maybe even the kids might just be a little way too old to even.
No, this was. They're all dead or like decrepit. I mean, it's not. It's not a big deal. It's just that, like I was able to see Christina Ricci as the mom, whoever as the dad. I mean, this is a very replaceable cast.
True.
Christopher Lloyd is still alive. He said he liked doing the Uncle Fester character, so I would maybe see a return to that particular character. I wouldn't mind. I think he's available. I don't think he's doing much at this point. Even if you don't, there are plenty of other actors who can fill these particular roles. I'm curious to see what they would do with the movie, though.
Yeah, because there was that big debate between like, who do you prefer better, the Munsters or the Addams Family? Yeah, because the
Munsters are definitely more family friendly. The Addams Family is definitely a little weirder
because they actually got.
But the Munsters at several points have tried to do like new television films. Yeah. And it's never worked out.
But the Addams Family did get quite a bit of fame in the movie world. Yeah. They did both the Munsters and the Addams Family had both animated spin-offs of their shows. They didn't do a reboot television, though, for the Addams Family that I know of, but they did do for, once again, the Munsters. And they had their own little movies here and there, but wasn't as big as the Addams Family.
Yeah, no. But, so you're cool with the remake, though?
Yeah, I'll check it out.
Perfect. Yeah. So there you go. Yeah. Okay, speaking of characters that may be shifting roles, we have Drax, or more specifically the character, the guy who plays Drax, Dave Bautista. This is, again, totally speculative internet rumors, guys. But there is a wrestling magazine called Wrestling Observer Newsletter. In its latest issue, basically said that Dave Bautista is mulling over the idea of returning to the WWE, which is where he got his start, his big fame, his push as like this character, his push to fame. And since he left the WWE, he's been doing amazing work on Guardians of the Galaxy as like this really famous character, and he's been a part of that Guardians of the Galaxy universe, a big part of it. But there are rumors essentially that he's looking back to go into the WWE, which is weird to me, going from like super movie fame back to wrestling. It's not that he wouldn't be the first person to do so, but with such big roles as like Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy and being in the Infinity Wars, like going backward, it seems like it would be backward step to me, but whatever the man wants to do. But that move back to the WWE would kind of mean he would leave the Marvel universe in some respect.
Just a little bit. Once again, like a relating character or person that's done it, of course, is like The Rock. But The Rock has option. He wasn't necessarily obligated because, especially when he did go back to WWE, he was more of the showman.
It was a cameo. He basically did. He did cameos. He didn't do like full time
like an actual
wrestling
match
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, he was pretty much the MC, if you will. He was hosting a lot of things. He hosted WrestleMania. He was on other shows. He might have come in, ran in, did his rock bottom and whatnot, but that's as far as it goes. As for Dave Bautista, if you saw his other work, it looked like a really bad version.
Dave Bautista has been in... he's probably most famous for the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes.
But he's also been in Blade Runner 2049. He's also done some other roles where he actually has several independent movies where he's the main character. And it's like more action, adventure kind of stuff. Especially, you might not recognize because I'm still growing out a full beard. And he looks a little scary. And the character is definitely different than like your Drax character, which is super... He's playing in Guardians of the Galaxy, not just action, but he's also playing comedy.
Yeah.
You know, and so his other action roles aren't as well known for that, but those other movies aren't horrible. You know, they're more ones like Arnold Schwarzenegger action type roles. You know?
Oh yeah, because the one that I didn't like in him, the way they just dressed him up is they tried to. I don't know if it was supposed to be a reboot or a prequel or something, but they did a kickboxer movie where he played Tong Po, and they gave him the braids, the dreads, hair, and everything. It was just like, oh my god, why?
If he's doing acting, you don't always get to choose the best roles for you. But now that he has this particular fame, like he can kind of write his own ticket in the respect of like, oh, I can be in action movies or whatever. You know what I mean? But I mean, whatever makes you happy, man. If you got Guardians of the Galaxy money, I think you're pretty set for a few years. You can kind of kick around if that's what you want to do. You know
that's
true.
I mean? The main thing, man, he's got to keep that body because if not,
definitely. The acting skills aren't the thing they're kind of hiring you for, man. So wish him luck, and we'll kind of see where it actually goes. I don't think he's actually going to leave the movies. I think he might do the Rock version of like popping in for some cameos just to acknowledge his roots as a wrestler. But once you go Hollywood and you get that Hollywood money and you don't have to kill yourself on the mat, like why go back? So true. Onto some other speculative stories from the internet. We have some stuff from the Nerdist. The Nerdist was nice enough to put out an article this week that kind of speculated what may happen in the Avengers Infinity War and Avengers 4, which is the movie that comes after that. So if you don't want any kind of speculative spoilers, folks, just skip ahead a little bit. But we have been warned for let's see how many people are watching live. Nobody. So there you go. Folks. Okay, so here we go. The Nerdist essentially says that they have pieced together some possibilities from like given screenshots, footage that has been like captured by cell phone camera and from casting calls. And they're speculating basically that the Infinity Wars is going to have time travel in it, which totally makes sense because of the time cube and for the Benedict Cumberbatch's ability to travel, to master time, basically. So they're speculating basically that Thanos is going to come into Infinity Wars, kick everybody's butt, and for some reason or another, parts of the team or just one person is going to go travel back in time to try to change history so that Thanos is defeated. And that's going to be the big rub. There are, from casting sheets, apparently there are scenes in the 60s and the 40s, which means that they might be doing multiple time jumps. And there are changes in the future where like Hawkeye has been seen in his Ronin persona. So there is speculation that those scenes where he's seen in those outfits are actually from like a alternate future timeline where things have just gone super, super bad. And so he's changing to his like Avenger, his like, what's it called? Batman's a... No, it's from, he's a street level fighter who's killing people, Yeah, so all their speculation, like they may be turning into the future, into the past, and back and forwards, all into the goal of defeating Thanos, who becomes, once he gets the Infinity Gauntlet, falls without essentially a god. And so those are the speculative rumors. So what do you think of those particular concepts, man?
I want to see how it's gonna go because they did have like the shadowy figure. I didn't get a chance to actually pause it and try to like adjust the lighting settings to see if I could make out who it was and all that kind of stuff. But they obviously with the time gem, that's a possibility. Obviously.
Well, yeah, we've seen a trailer for Avengers Infinity War, and we see Thanos coming in and kicking anyone's ass. And there's also like a gigantic portal with like Iron Man's suit, Spider-Man.
Exactly.
And so we have no idea what those things are. But we do see all the characters. We see all the big names in this series, like there with Thanos and maybe not everybody doing well.
And we know obviously it's going to be a two-parter, and obviously
it's sort of a two-parter. They have Infinity Wars and they have Avengers 4, but they haven't named Avengers 4.
Exactly.
So it may be an entirely different film. We were all speculating it's not because this is just too big of an event to keep to one movie. So it definitely makes sense that if they're doing a two-parter, it can be time travel, but we don't know for sure.
Yeah, because in the trailer, if you look at him, he's not wearing his armored out outfit.
Not yet.
In those other post credit scenes in the other Marvel movies, he was donning
we've seen him
in his seat. In his
we've also seen him in like the live statues they have for like the Marvel events. Like they showed Thanos and his like kids, which are like this. I forget the name of the gang, but like it was like this big, tough looking gang.
Yeah, kind of like the Horsemen of the
kind of like the Horsemen. Yeah. So there's lots of room and lots of characters there to kind of mess with, and lots of things to do, especially with those Infinity Gems. Like once you start introducing those, you can do some really interesting story stuff, especially like the time travel one, mental stuff, like so many cool things. So all the possibilities there. Feel free to chat in the comments, either on the YouTube page or Facebook, or even on the comments on the Slide broadcast. If you have any suggestions or hypotheses of your own. I wish Matt was watching. He would totally have things to say.
No, because my thing would be kind of cool, like especially with the time travel option, like Captain America going back to right before he was taking off, and like knowing that he could stay that time, be with Agent Carter, Peggy Carter, and actually continue living the life that he should have, instead of being frozen and woken up later on and becoming
there are definitely those flashpoint events that you're talking about basically for like the larger Marvel universe though. Okay, now moving into some other just discussion news. We have a couple of new movies that have come out recently. We're going to talk about those, so if you don't want to get spoilers from those at all, feel free to skip ahead. We're going to be talking about Bright, which is the new Netflix movie with Will Smith, and it's like an urban fantasy cop genre, and also Star Wars: The Last Jedi. We're talking about both of those things. Starting with Bright, though, have you had a chance to watch that movie, man?
No, other than the trailer. I know I've been exhausted with work, especially the holidays. I've been wearing it myself out, but I wanted to check out. I'm gonna watch it. If anything, I'll probably watch it today. But you saw it.
Yeah, I saw it. It's actually...
is it an episodic?
No, it's a movie. It's a full-on movie. Netflix has already ordered a sequel to the movie before it even came out. There's that much big of a buzz. They did a full Hollywood treatment of the movie came out. They had a red carpet event and a premiere at Grauman's Chinese Theater. The whole shebang for the movie, because of course it stars
and for Netflix,
Will Smith. Yeah, and it's a very expensive movie, by the way, because you get Will Smith, it's going to be expensive. There's also a ton of good special effects. They're trying to pull it out as a buddy cop movie with fantasy elements. And so you've seen Training Day, you've seen Bad Boys. That kind of film is just with Will Smith is the older cop. He's kind of jaded,
the veteran.
Yeah, and he has this new rookie cop who happens to be an orc, the first orc on the entire police force. And while you don't give like a big history of the world, you see that there are different fantasy elements and creatures in our world suddenly. And they haven't been there for like a super long time. Like there are orcs and there's fairies and there's elves, and it's kind of a classist issue. And there's even like, we'll call it speciesism, because they're different species that are replacing race issues in this particular movie. So the orcs are essentially the minority races of the world, and that because they look so different, because they're kind of stupid and big, they're put into a role in this movie as like the gangsters and the people of lower income. Also, because they also supported the Dark Lord thousands of years ago, they're relegated to like a distrusted class of people, and also the tribalistic. And so there are all these recurring phrases like, "Oh, orcs go with tribe first," and everyone else last, tribe law first. Which is always like which is meant to be a parallel to be like, oh, black people stick together, or those Mexicans will always pick themselves, they're each other,
of the streets,
and so there's a bunch of that stuff there as well. But at its core, it is a cop film, in that the two essentially find a magic wand, which is a highly sought after item of power that not everybody can use. Only like a few people, like 1 in 10 elves, but like 1 in like a million humans can use this magic wand. And it can grant any wish possible, basically, if you know how to use it up. And so it becomes essentially like in other movies, like, oh, it's a bag of cocaine, or like $1 billion. And so everybody wants it, and they're trying to murder him. The special effects are really top notch. The action is cool. The only thing I think I would complain about in the movie is like the sound design. like the sound effects and the music. I feel like they could have put a little more effort into it because the action scenes don't sound actiony. Like the sound of like crashes and the sounds of like guns, they don't really pop. You know, like you would expect for an action film. The same thing with like some of the music, like the music in a movie, whether or not you realize it, informs you how to feel. And so in tense moments, you expect a certain type of music. In the triumphant moments, you expect, dun, 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 or in scary moments or whatever, like the music informs you how to feel. And I think they just could have done a better job on the music end of this particular movie. So that's just my opinion, but I enjoyed it.
So as much as it came out and as much money they put in it, do you think it would stand a chance in the theaters?
I don't think they would ever have made this movie in theaters. Because it is an unknown. Like the biggest surest thing is Will Smith. Great. But they would have had to pour a ton of money into advertising, more special effects. They would have stretched it out more. And if they had done that, yeah, sure. I think that it could stand a chance, but I don't think it would have been made as an actual movie in the theaters because it is different.
Would you say it'd be better than that one movie with him and his kid where he's out in space?
Yeah. That movie is heavily that movie depends on special effects, and Little Smith is not a good actor. Like Will Smith carries this whole movie without a doubt. Like the orc is a good actor, but he plays plays a straight man. He's trying to do the right thing in life, and so there are character tropes there. But Will Smith absolutely carries this whole movie. Like it's all dependent upon him and his conflict as like, do I give up my partner for a chance to go in with the bad guys and the corrupt cops who want to like sell off this magic wand or use it, or and that kind of stuff. And so Will definitely carries this whole movie. So I think most of the investment is in him. But as like a regular movie, I don't know that it would ever made. Which is the great thing about Netflix, they don't have to justify that as long as it's being watched enough that it covers the cost of like making the film. They don't care about it because they don't have to worry about marketing. They don't have to worry about, paying for billboards or like spending like twice as much as it costs to make the movie to advertise for it,
Yeah. There's been very few, though, Netflix shows are actually been put onto like DVD format, sold in stores.
Well, you don't need to. It's streaming. Like that's the whole point of it. So it's like that model is not necessary for Netflix. So they don't have to invest in it. They don't have to invest in they do for a few films for the opportunity to get awards, but Netflix has enough money and they're on a different model system than traditional television and movies, so that they don't have to do that.
Yeah, it's almost getting to the point now that they're thinking of making a new genre category for streaming
stuff.
Yeah, but some of them are actually being nominated right now, or
because they're really good.
Won awards.
Yeah, they're good films. They're good television shows, and I like the fact that essentially, in some instances, they're taking a great movie idea and stretching it out for like 6 or 7 episodes. In the example, like either Punisher or Daredevil, like those were made as movies, but they sucked. Yeah. You know what I mean? And but you put it as an episodic series, in the same way it feels like in the comics, and you got a gem with the correct writing, the right actors, and then that Netflix is jam right there. So there you go. And they can do the same thing with other properties, and they are investing a ton of money into being a content producer, not just a content creator. So that's where they're heading. Hopefully that that model works for them. They've been taking on quite a bit of debt, like billions. Like seriously. Yep. Okay. On to our next discussion section, which is going to be Star Wars: The Last Jedi. It came out this last not too long ago. I think it was last week. So you folks have had a week to look at it. If you don't want to hear anything about it, skip ahead again. But
spoiling it.
Did you like the movie, man?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, I liked it.
Is there a caveat there, or is it like a but?
It was just an interesting take on it because I didn't have any expectations. I'm like, oh, they're going to do this route, they're going to go that route. I was just surprised where they went with the characters, because I was kind of just discussing it with a friend of mine. I was telling him like, why did they change the characters into like Super Saiyan anime? It became like Dragon Ball Z for me.
Like which characters do you mean?
Well, straight off Leia.
Leia, okay. You mean like the fact that she had force powers suddenly?
And suddenly, all she was missing is the Super Saiyan gold hair, and to go back into the ship and just
Well, she wasn't like super, super powerful. Yeah. She just had a small force ability, which kind of makes sense if you've read. And again, this gets nerdy, folks, but that's what Geek and Tech podcast is. Again, if you don't want to hear this, skip ahead, folks. Thanks for hanging out. But in the movie, Leia I thought she was going to die.
That's why, because the real life thing.
I thought that she wasn't a dad. That's how they're going to get rid of her.
That's how I was expecting.
There's a scene in the movie where there's a big explosion on a ship and she's sucked out into the vacuum of space. I mean, and I thought for sure, like, oh, that's how they're doing this at the beginning of the film. She's just killed in action like that.
I thought they're going to yondu her.
Yeah, and I'm like, wow, that's ballsy. Because she's shown later on, like in other parts of the movie. I'm like, they totally retcon that thing. And it turns out that in space, when she's kind of frozen looking, she opens her eyes and she uses her force powers to fly back into the ship. And then of course she's like out of the film for most of it, like in like critical care. Yeah. So she's not like, she's not Super Saiyan like he's saying, like she's not like Superman, but she just uses her limited force abilities to go in. And that, and as far as that canon goes, makes sense to me, because even though it's not in episode like 4, 5, or 6 where she's using her force powers, remember she's referenced as like, oh, Luke is not the only hope we have. There's the other one.
Yeah.
Which means that Leia always had force powers.
Yeah.
And if you ever read the extended canon, which is like the novels and like the comics for Star Wars, Leia has force powers. She just doesn't develop them very much. Yeah. But she uses them more for diplomatic uses. Like, kind of getting vibes off of diplomats to make like deals and trade negotiations and help solve problems in the Republic. Remember the fact that this is 20, 30 years later for her, so she's had time to develop her own force powers potentially. Maybe she's not as strong as Luke Skywalker, of course, but doesn't mean she doesn't have force powers. She has just as many mitochondria as he does, which is thankfully a thing they skip in episodes like 7 and 8.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Leia twist was definitely big. What'd you think of the big one at the end with Luke Skywalker?
That part I wasn't sure where they were going with the character, because obviously when you see him at the island place where he is trying to seclude himself from everybody, he's on in his white gear and everything, but then that scene comes out and he's wearing his dark gear, because that's what was kind of a little bit of a teaser in the poster, like, so is he a good guy or is he a bad guy? Because you saw him in his black attire, dark beard, all that. Like, so is he Sith now, or what's going on, or is he unleashing the dark side to take out?
Yeah. So now again, spoiler, folks. In the Last Jedi, for a lot of the movie, Luke Skywalker is kind of this hermit. And I don't want to train you, Rey, but we'll train you a little bit because I see like there's potential. I want to get you off my island. And then at the very end of the movie, he has a chat with Yoda, and he basically realized that he can still participate without bringing back the Jedi as a unit, or like the Jedi, academy, the whole Jedi concept of a religion. Until the very end of the movie, just when like everybody's gonna die, the rebellion is trapped in this big cave. It's very much like the scene from on I forget the world, the Ice World, when they're trapped in the ice caves there.
Yes.
And the Empire is like shooting at them. It's very reminiscent of that, and that everybody's trapped. And so you have the bad guys just shooting at this cave, and they're gonna break through any minute. And then Luke Skywalker shows up, kind of out of nowhere, and he talks to everybody. He kind of talks to Slade a little bit. He hands her a thing. Everybody in the rebellion sees him, and then he walks out the door and he faces the entire Imperial First Order army by himself. And everybody shoots him, and it's like really dramatic. And it's like, pew, pew, pew. I mean, everything from the walkers to like the battleships, they're all shooting at Luke Skywalker. And he just walks out of there like nobody's business, like he's not hurt at all,
like a pimp. He just
he's like
wipes off the
bam,
shoulder.
bam, lady, like what do you got now? And then Kylo Ren, he comes up with his lightsaber. He tries to fight him face to face, 1-on-1, and he's swiping left to right. And Luke is just like being a badass ninja, skipping over everything, and he doesn't get touched once.
He does a little Matrix, kind of fall back kind of thing, lean back,
where he's not touched at all. And everybody's like, man, Luke Skywalker's a badass. He's gonna kill all these fools with his lightsaber, which is also a thing to note in the story. Like you notice, like later on, like where did he get that lightsaber? I'm pretty sure somebody had that lightsaber. And so there are little hints there. And then it turns out that he's not there at all. That he's still on that original island with this other planet, and he's force projecting through the force to literally like hundreds or thousands of people that he's existing on that ice planet, or on that salty planet, whatever it is. And that's how powerful it is. Like, and then they shoot back to the island, and he's floating off of the rock, and it's like his like meditation pose. And then once it ends, and he's like, suckers, I saved them enough time so they can escape, laters. And then he disappears as like a force ghost, like his whole body disappears, and his clothes fall to the ground, like Obi-Wan Kenobi kind of style.
He just worn out his juice and all that. The part that was
not worn out his juice, but remember Obi-Wan we'll get in a second, but like the end that part of that scene is like, oh, Luke is gone. He's kind of decided to move on in his journey in the Force. It's not that he died. That's not what happened to Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's not what happened to Luke Skywalker. They essentially chose through like a meditative like Jedi. I think this is getting nerdy again. To essentially abandon their physical form and to be a part of the Force, the same way that, when you see Ghost Yoda or Ghost Obi-Wan Kenobi, that's what Luke has chosen to do voluntarily. Like he's advanced to the point beyond mastery of the Force so that he can actually voluntarily join it as almost like this spirit entity.
Oh yeah, I can totally see it. Especially the hardcore nerds love seeing the Muppet style Yoda instead of the CG
cool, yeah.
Yoda.
That was definitely bad.
Because I was like,
oh yeah, Yoda. He returns. He does a cameo, folks.
And totally Muppet style, totally voiced by Frank Oz and everything. But it wasn't the CG one for they saw from the prequels. So it was an interesting take to bring that back.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought it was cool, mostly because I knew the nerdy stuff. Like, oh no, he's force projecting to everybody. I'm like, I saw it coming. I'm like, oh no, because as soon as I saw him appear and he wasn't moving the ice crystals around, like, that was their big tell. Like, oh, everybody else when they stepped on the ground left red footprints. You know what I mean? And the Luke Skywalker, and they were very careful to like just show his feet where he wasn't leaving. I'm like, oh no, he's force projecting from somewhere else. Like he's not really there. Yeah. So I was happy to see it because I'm like, oh, I'm right, haha, the entire theater. But I thought it was kind of cool because it shows you exactly how badass Luke Skywalker is.
Now, for you, anything you like or did not like your highs and lows on this?
I wasn't a big fan of the bank robbery scene, I guess. Remember the casino scene, yeah, where the two main characters are like going to find some hacker, and it doesn't go quite the right way, but they still get a guy who's good enough, I guess.
The Benicio del Toro
guy. That plot, I mean, that whole scene of like them being there was essential for character development for the Asian character. Like, oh, this is kind of where she grew up. She's anti-establishment and anti like rich people because she grew up poor, and that whole section was basically meant to draw those characters close together. So through shared conflict and through shared dangerous life instance, that they would kind of grow into a romantic interest, right? And which motivates her to sacrifice herself for Finn, like later on. So that's all that's for. But for me, I'm like, you could have shown something better than them running around in a casino. I'm like, they didn't even like really get to rob the place. Like BB-8 kind of saved everybody. Yeah. The Benicio del Toro character was he's okay. He plays very much like the Collector, as far as I'm concerned. As far as like the character type that he chose. And I mean, it is what it is as far as like his betrayal or whatever. But that was not a surprise. So
I'm kind of glad the Porgs weren't as annoying as I thought.
No, I was hoping the Wookiee would eat them. Like there was a scene where he's cooking them and it's almost in his mouth. The Porgs are like, what?
That's my mom. That's my
there's like a whole like group of them like looking at him and
fuck off. I'm gonna eat this shit.
Yeah, I'm hoping they show up like pork chicken dinners at Disneyland at some point. I would absolutely just like gnaw at that, but like here's the pork you like. Nom, 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 nom. That's
your family.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with the porgs. They're basically for Christmas fodder and stuff toys.
Oh yeah,
and I get that. That's Disney's a company who's thinking ahead of merchandising in addition to.
That's why they made sure everybody had at least like some kind of costume change or an alternative version of their look from the first film.
Yeah, I mean, so that all makes sense. Anything you didn't like? Please.
Other than the porgs, the Muppet part, I was kind of surprised that they would bring back.
Yeah, I prefer Muppets over CGI.
Yeah, I was just surprised that they did that, but I was just wondering what they were going with the characters. Like, okay, now that you know technically Leia is alive.
Yeah.
Even though in real life, obviously, she's dead. What do you think of possibility they're going to do for the ninth film?
Luke Skywalker's going to show up. He'll show up as Ghost Luke Skywalker to help train Rey. Leia is going to die mysteriously, either from illness or like there'll be some scene where she's, murdered or something, where they show an exploding ship to like show, oh, she's being killed off by the First Order, and that fuels everyone's rage. Because they just can't include it. They already said they're not going to do CGI Leia. And so they've already shot some scenes with her for episode 9, I believe it is. But I think they're going to kill her off way early just because they have to. Yeah. But Luke Skywalker, I'm guessing, is going to come back in episode 9 as like the ghost, the ghost mentor for Rey, because she's going to be facing off against other force-powered Empire people. Because remember, they said that what's his face? That guy. This guy, Kylo Ren, took select students from the academy with him. and they all went to the Empire. And even though we've only seen, Kylo Ren, there are other Force-capable people in the Empire that exist. And so we're going to see them in episode 9, and she's going to face off against like maybe them or maybe a couple teams or whatever, or a group, which means she needs more training.
Yeah, because there was the whole thing that they still didn't out that who she is related to.
They sort of did. I mean, he talked about it. He's like, "Oh, no, your parents were just like junk traders. They sold you off. You're not special." You know what I mean? And so that's her backstory. The actress who plays her is like, "Oh yeah, they say in this movie who my parents are, so you're gonna get what you want. It's not as special as you thought it was. Exactly. She's not really his twin, Which is what I was thinking was going to be once they established that like Force connection. I was like, oh, maybe they can do the Luke and Leia thing, and they're like related. Like she's really one of the Skywalkers or one of the Solos or something.
Exactly.
But like they're like, no, you're just a junk trader. You happen to be Force capable. That's it. The end.
Yeah, I like the little origin of the blue milk.
Oh, you see where it comes from? Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was very interesting. But yeah, there's a weird take on it. Well, it's kind of funny.
Wasn't it green in the movie? Like I think it was like a different species, but there's definitely the nod to like the what is it, Nerf herder milk or whatever it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The one cool thing about that island where he is actually an existing island. Those little like cave dwelling things are actually a legit place that people could actually take tours in.
Oh yeah. I mean the things they built on like yeah. There was some early cover art or like concept art for that looked a lot different. Like you knew it was going to be CGI'd if they used like the original Lucasfilm like approved artwork for it. But I like this version. This one felt more ancient.
Yeah.
Like it was just stone. It wasn't like this massive like fancy place.
Yeah. What did you think of the Red Guard?
I'm glad to see that they're finally used. Like in so many of the Star Wars movies, they've sort of just existed, and we're always wondering, like, okay, how badass are they if they're the Emperor's like personal bodyguards?
Especially the guys with the like complete red cone, but it's fabric.
That's what they are. Like it was always like, oh, they're just kind of standing there. We're told that they're like the elitist of the elite stormtroopers that have been playing for like the Emperor's personal bodyguard, but we never saw them in action until this movie, and it was pretty good. I have to say, I thought they were pretty awesome for people who aren't Jedi.
Yeah, I was kind of sad though with the Phasma fight scene. I thought she would bust out some better moves or some.
She's a stormtrooper. That's all she is. She's not Force capable.
Yeah,
she's facing some other guy who's just the same. So I think I'm always sad that they don't show her face because she has a good strong look to her. It's the fact that you have to hide it behind a mask is always kind of a detriment because you can totally play up her womanhood and like her badassness as a woman. Capable of like kicking any dude's ass basically who's not like a Jedi.
Yeah.
But it's not played up as much as I would have hoped.
Yeah, it could have been cool. Like the helmet got cracked and everything. She could have just got
that pissed, was it. Yeah,
ripped it off and let's go, motherfucker. That would have
been amazing. Yeah, but that's not the way they went because she's a secondary character, just like Finn is at this point. So
yeah,
it is what it is. But it's nice that they tied back up that his loose ends of like, oh hey Finn, whatever. Right? Remember me, the trainer who stole you from your parents? Yeah. So there you go. Okay. So overall, I enjoyed it. Definitely recommend it to go watch it if you're a fan of Star Wars. There you go. Okay. So we have a couple for the movie trailer showdown, and that'll end the show. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 movie trailer showdown trailers that came out these last couple weeks, including Mamma Mia 2. So there's a very songy version there. We have Gringo, which is it's a very interesting movie. It has some interesting actors and actresses I can't name off the top of my head.
Some new names, Charlize Theron's.
Yeah, it's Charlize Theron. I was hoping she would be a bigger character in the movie.
Yeah.
It turns like she's not. It's mostly about a guy they sent into Mexico to give their pot formula for their medicinal marijuana thing. It's going to manufacture Mexico, but things go awry. And it's like this weird kidnapping trip thing.
Involving with cartels and stuff.
Then there's also Ocean's 8, which is going to be essentially Ocean's 11 movie with ladies.
Yeah.
So that's a thing. Lots of fur on the internet about replacing dudes again with the ladies. And then there's also Mortal Engines and Kill Order. So of these 5, man, which one did you like the best?
I'm going to say Mamma Mia 2.
Mamma Mia 2. That is definitely, to me, it is definitely the most
entertaining.
Famous song stuff. Now we can't play the music for you folks because we will get
licensing.
We will get hit with so many like cease and desist orders. It's not funny.
How dare you?
Yeah, because they do like automatic checks for like songs.
So the whole thing is pretty much a prequel, if you will, or like the story origins of how she, I guess if you've seen the original,
yeah,
she gets married and all, but I guess in this version she's pregnant. and I guess she's on her own.
No. Well, it's even before that. It's like, how does she meet the guy?
Exactly.
And why does her choices as like going to this Greek island by herself, and there she is meeting the guy who's going to be and them as young people. So it's an entirely new cast. Most of the movie is set, of course, in the past, and like I think it's like the 70s or something, and everybody's really young, so it's a bunch of different people interacting. So it might as well be its own different movie.
Yeah.
But they also just reference the characters that are from the original movie.
Yeah.
But there's also songs and great things like that. So it looks very fun. Looks very happy-go-lucky, romantic kind of thing, which is what you loved about movie number 1.
Yeah.
So there you go. So if that's what you're looking for, I think this is definitely gonna hit your vibe. There's plenty of good songs.
So if you love ABBA, and of course the last scene,
Sure.
Yeah.
So 2018. Yeah. So it's gonna be a little while, folks. For me, I'm gonna have to go with Kill Order. Kill Order was definitely a good action trailer for me. It's kind of like superhero-ish a little bit, with a ton more martial arts. Kid who's in class, he's everywhere, but he's also a secret super agent with like powers, and you get to see like some glowing hand stuff going on for his particular superpower thing that he's been genetically like modified or whatever.
It's almost like American Ultra, but without the pot.
It's like 10 times better than American Ultra, that's for sure. Like this guy's the entire time is like super good martial arts stuff. So I'm comparing it more to like Dragon Ball Z. If
Minus
it
the
was
sucking?
like with the Asian people, like a good version of Dragon Ball Z with like more killing and like weapons and guns and stuff. But that's kind of the vibe I got out from it. So I enjoyed that more. The other ones are good. Like Ocean's 8 looks like it may be a decent high film. It's mostly depending on the actors and actresses there. Like those are the people that like they're saying, oh, you have Sandra Bullock, a bunch of famous people. Go watch this movie, and that's what they're depending on.
Yeah.
Mortal Engines is weird. I mean, it's weird, but it's like cool weird. It's from Peter Jackson, and essentially cities on wheels that are traveling around the world in a post-apocalyptic future. And the main character, which I believe is Emily Blunt, I think so, because it's hard to see her face. She has a red mask on, but it's like, oh, the London is capturing them, and they're like trying to grab them and like essentially process them for resources. Yeah. So it's very Mad Max kind of a vibe to like the world of like limited resources, people trying to kill each other, for those resources.
She, of course, because of the red mask alone, she reminded me of like a Katana. I was, well, what's Katana doing from, or not Katana, what's her name from Daredevil?
Oh, Elektra?
Elektra, there you go. But seeing the semi-futuristic kind of thing, it also reminded me of Trigun.
Sort of.
Like Bash's Stampede. That's like the only character that was missing.
It's a little steampunky as well. Like, everything's like kind of jury rigged, steam's coming everywhere, very mechanically oriented instead of like being silicon chip based. Like a post-apocalyptic future, cities are mobile for some reason that I'm sure they're going to try to justify in this film, and they're like moving fortresses on wheels, and they travel around looking for resources, or they like capture other cities for those resources and people. So we'll have to see how this actually goes. But Mortal Engines, maybe the engines feed off people.
That's true.
That would be a thing.
A living thing.
I'm curious to see where it goes. Again, this is just your first kind of teaser trailer, so decent. But again, my pick is definitely Kill Order. Yours is Mamma Mia. So those are the two trailers you picked as a movie trailer showdown. 5 entered, 2 left. So there you go, folks. That's it. We're done. That's the end of the show. Thank you for hanging out with us and for listening to us geek out and nerd about stuff. If you want to comment on anything we've said, remember you can email us at feedback@geekbytespodcast.com. Or you can check us out on Facebook, Twitter. We can message us there, and we'll definitely get back to you as far as like replying to your opinions and stuff. Yeah. And if you leave us an email or message, we'll read it on the air, so everybody can know exactly what you think, and they can send you replies, because that's how geekdom works. We like talking to each other. But thanks again for listening and for watching. For Geek Bytes Podcast, I'm Ramon Mejia.
I'm Edgardo Acosta.
And remember, folks, to go geek out about something, and we'll catch you later. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.